The following program is an original production of WYCC PBS Chicago.
Good evening. I'm Chris Bury.
And I'm Barbara Pinto. Welcome to a special presentation of In the Loop, a closer look at youth violence.
After a bitterly cold winter, the Chicago Police Department reported violent crime dropped by 20% in the first 4 months of the year. But the number of homicides remained about the same, and young people are still overwhelmingly the victims. Of the 35 homicides in April, for example, 21 of the victims were 24 and younger, more than half.
Tonight, we tackle this from many angles, including guns, gangs, social media, music, and school closings and their roles in Chicago's youth violence problem.
How long are we to live like this? How long are we to cry like this? When does it end?
India Martin was only 14 years old, gunned down by another 14-year-old girl in a fight over a boy that started on Facebook.
It's affecting me bad. Like, I'm really scared because every now and then I be scared to go outside, even to think that somebody's gonna shoot or kill somebody. I'm just scared.
India's shooting, captured on cell phone video, led to 6 arrests. Her death, one of many in a city plagued by guns and gangs.
Well, I have 5 children, and already I have 3 children that have been shot.
It's due to rap music and, like I said, the video games, the Grand Theft Auto and stuff like that. These are things they know. So they emulate the things that they see.
Hydea Pendleton was a model student, good grades, active in school. Her tragic death came after the trip of a lifetime to Washington, D.C. In his State of the Union address last year, President Obama spoke of her murder just blocks from his Chicago home.
Just 3 weeks ago, she was here in Washington with her classmates, performing for her country at my inauguration. And a week later, she was shot and killed in a Chicago park after school, just a mile away from my house. Hydea's parents, Nate and Cleo, are in this chamber tonight. They deserve a vote. They deserve a vote.
Hi, my name is Hydea.
6 years ago, Hydea spoke out against gangs and guns in this public service video.
This commercial is informational for you and your future children. So think smart, but joining the gang isn't a part of it.
Hydea's message was heard around the world on YouTube. Her cousin, Shatira Wilkes, believes Hydea's short life should be a symbol to those demanding stricter gun laws.
I was just happy to know that her name has escalated to where the president is adding her in his conversation.
But the president's push for a law extending background checks on gun buyers and banning assault weapons and high-capacity ammunition magazines failed, voted down in the Senate. In the wake of the Newtown school shootings, Hydea's death, and so many others to gun violence, the president pledged to keep fighting.
So all in all, this was a pretty shameful day for Washington. But this effort is not over. I want to make it clear to the American people, we can still bring about meaningful changes that reduce gun violence, so long as the American people don't give up on it.
Hydea's neighbors say stricter laws are only part of the solution and may not have saved Hydea's life.
Black boys don't go and use assault rifles. They can't afford them. That little girl that got killed, it wasn't shot with an assault rifle.
I believe that this is a calling that is going to wake up everyone, and this is now.
We are joined by 3 guests with first-hand knowledge of youth violence. Aisha Latiker, Youth Advisor for Kids Off the Block, LaShawn Jackson, Co-Executive Director of Circle Foundation Innovations High School, and Stephanie Coleman, Clinical Fellow at Northwestern's Children and Family Justice Center. Welcome to you all. We saw in the piece talk about stricter gun laws, and the NRA has long pointed to Chicago with some of the strictest gun laws in the country, yet an incredible amount of shootings here, saying that stricter laws don't work. Stephanie, do they have a point?
I think that there is truth to the matter that longer sentences for mere possession have not proven effective in reducing violence. However, when it comes to the proliferation of weapons, most of which are coming into Illinois from other states that have actually very lax gun laws, I think that there is a relationship between the ease of buying many guns and the ability of those to flow into urban areas, including Chicago.
LaShawn, already this year, and we're early into the year, the Chicago police have recovered 2,000 guns from the street. But in 2012, they recovered 7,500. Is there any way to stop the tsunami of weapons on the street?
Well, I don't know if gun laws are necessarily going to stop it. I think that there should be stricter gun laws, just like anything else that's dangerous. However, most of the kids that are getting these guns aren't buying them legally. So, I mean, putting a gun law out there is not going to stop them from access. It's probably more of an underground thing, and a gun law is, these are illegal happenings, so a law, it's not going to change anything.
Aisha, is this a matter of access to guns? Is this a matter of gangs and turf? Why are people getting shot?
It's all of the above, actually. We didn't place the guns in our own community, you know. They're not American-made, most of them that's coming in. It's a gang-related thing, but that's not all of the violence that's going on. Some could be cliques, some could be schools. Like it just depends on where you're coming from, what type of environment you're in. It's not all gang-related. Everyone is not gangbangers that have something to do with the violence that's going on in Chicago. But it's a lack of opportunity, a lack of resources, a lack of jobs that, you know, keep them secluded in that one area, in that one environment where they can only experience that type, you know, that type of atmosphere. And, you know, that's all I have to say.
After India Martin was killed, Aisha, Mayor Emanuel came out and said that fundamentally this is about values. Is he right?
I believe so. I truly do. To just take someone's life like that and have no remorse. She wasn't involved in the gang. She wasn't out here doing anything that she had no business doing. And for her to just get laid down like that, you know, where's our respect, you know, for our peers? Like, do we not have any, like, bond? Like, it's not a unity. It's not unified. We're against this person. We're against this person. We can't talk to each other. We can't confide in each other. And, you know, I believe it starts from home. Yeah. Like, if that's not instilled in you, then how could you go out and take that into the world amongst other people, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it goes back to the cliche African proverb, it takes a village. And our communities are distraught, and it starts in the family. So once the family unit breaks down, it's very hard to keep a community or a village together. And I think that if anything is going to change the violence, it has to start at that level. It's not necessarily a law that the government can do to change the mind states of the youth with the guns in their hands. They're not thinking about the laws, they don't care about it. But when you've been raised a certain way to have no respect for another person's life, and it hasn't been instilled in you, and then you do have other things pouring into your mind on a daily basis, it's very easy to shoot someone without any remorse.
Yeah, it seems like even the smallest disputes, like with India Martin over a boy, become something completely different and deadly because of access.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lack of value for life. A lot of these kids that we work with don't have a lot of self-love. So it's very easy to reflect that on someone else when you feel you don't have anything to live for. A lot of the kids, they don't feel they're going to make it to 25. So they're like, I'm just going to live and do whatever I have to do, whenever I have to do it. And if you're living in a Wild Wild West situation, sometimes some of them feel the need to carry guns just to protect themselves. But then when they get under the influence of drugs, alcohol, and peer pressure, that turns into a whole different situation.
And then, of course, there's social media, which we're going to get to in a minute. In 2009, a student captured the horrific beating death of 16-year-old Darian Albert on his cell phone. The deadly attack sparked nationwide outrage and put a spotlight on Chicago's violence issue. Be advised, the video you're about to see is somewhat graphic. This video was seen around the world. Stephanie, was this the beginning of violence as a currency in social media?
I think it was the beginning of national attention to Chicago, to social media, and to violence as sort of a triumvirate of interest. But I don't think that this is the beginning of social media and violence necessarily. People who are engaging in violent acts have long bragged about them. We've seen, especially, I mean, I was a teenager in the 90s. It was definitely a part of pop culture at the time. So I think it's a new media, but not necessarily a new type of interaction between violence and, I guess, broadcasting it.
We live in a culture that celebrates violence. Al Capone in Chicago is one of a tour. People come to see where he shot people. You know, there's violence in the movies. So, I mean, to just look at our neighborhoods that we come from and say, you know, now the media is putting this out there. I mean, the media has been putting it out there. It's all over. And this is just a reflection
now it's
of it.
personal. Now it's on Facebook. Now it's on Twitter.
Yeah.
And the question is, does that stoke the rage?
I think they're kids. You know, they're 17, 16 years old, so they're using the media as a kid would. It's only age-appropriate behavior. But the bottom line of it is the violence is intrinsic within the culture, everywhere. So when you get the kids that have access to that level of mentality, then, you know, they're going to act like a kid. You know, I always tell people, you know, I never really blame the kids, even though it's unfortunate that they're 16 through 19, and you would think that they would have more contemplation on what they do. But, you know, we're looking at kids. And when I was in high school, I did a bunch of stuff that if it was on Facebook and Instagram, I would probably be in more trouble than what I got into in high school.
Well, that's the issue. I mean, I insult you to your face, that's one thing. I insult you online, and that's forever.
Right.
And everyone can see it, and I mean, there's just more pressure and more anger that can build around that. Do you see social media as making arguments worse, or what impact do you see this having on?
Of course. When I work at the Salvation Army, we don't allow our students to get on Facebook because, for the simple fact, arguments are started. People are telling different people to come up to wherever the location is to jump on people. You know, it was used for entertainment, and then it just got flipped around into something really negative. And this is nothing that just begun. Like, this is just a light that was shined on what our youth go through on a daily basis. Like, it's nothing that just came out of the woodworks. What happened with Darian Albert had been occurring for quite some time. So it was just, you know, somebody who caught it in full action and just, you know, let the world see it. Like, this is something that they deal with. Like, most of them are scared to go to school because of stuff like that. You know, the schools are closing, which means different students, different territories, different gangs have to move all in one neighborhood area and get along with each other. The furthest thing from my mind is making an A in this class when I have somebody who might shoot me later on coming out of school. Or, you know, it's just they have a lot to deal with, you know, and to stay focused and get an education, get good grades, don't drop out, do this and this and that. But they're dealing with something like really personal and could make them or break them, you know? So
there's really two things about social media that are particularly dangerous in combination with young people. Young people are different from adults in important ways. One of them is that while they have the intellectual capacity of an adult, they don't have the emotional reaction and ability to apply logic in the moment. It doesn't fully form in your brain until about the age of 25. And so from that age of about 13 to 20 especially, young people react based on their gut instincts a lot more, whereas if they had time to cool down and reflect, they would make very different choices because they are rational beings. It's just that that's overcome in the moment for them. And the second thing is that young people are, as part of their growing up process, they withdraw from their families naturally and form connections out in the world. And so peer interactions are extremely important to them, as we all know with teenagers. But the thing is that they are more likely to engage in risky behavior when they're around their friends. And social media gives you both instant reaction and all your friends around all the time. And so that's, I think, the issue with social media and teenagers.
I would definitely agree. And, you know, when you're looking at teenagers, the structure of the family or the village or the community was very important because, You have people that put brakes on things. That's like, okay, we're not going to do that. And you have people that would tell your mom, or your mom would keep you in the house and these things. But when you have the breakdown of these institutions that are core to our society and to life as we know it, then you get the kid who doesn't have any brakes. No one who's going to stop him from making an irrational decision. No one he can confide in, or she confide in, before they make that act. So with our school, we have a high school. That's one of the things that helps, because it's smaller. You can have that time to pull that person aside before something happens. And social media is intrinsic in what the kids do. So we have to police that to know what's going to happen. You know?
All right, we'll move from one type of media to another. Chicago has given rise to a new style of music and a new generation of rap artists. Aisha, how big a factor is drill music? How big an influence is it?
A major influence. It's a huge influence, because that's who our youth look up to. You know, either they want to be a rapper or they want to be a basketball player. So for Chief Keef to make music like that, and for them to embrace it, is absolutely normal. This is where they come from. He's a fellow Chicagoan, so they support him. But at the same time, he's a leader. I'm not saying he's a positive leader, but he's a leader. He has the music to influence youth to go out, sell drugs, shoot, kill, whatever the case is. And I mean, if I had a solution to counteract that, I'm pretty sure it would have already happened. But it's just taking us by storm. Like, oh, I don't listen to the lyrics, but I listen to the beat. Either way, you still absorbing that negativity, that drill music, which makes you angry and want to go out and do something that you probably had no business doing. But I definitely think it played a major role in our community.
For people who've never heard of it, what is the overwhelming message of drill music?
I'm gonna say this. He made a comment when his album dropped, the murder rate is gonna go up.
This is Chief Keef?
Yes. Is that what you know what's going on? You live in Chicago. You part of this, you part of that. You know what's going on in our community. And instead of you trying to deter that, it's like you bringing us down with you,
I mean, not to his credit, so I won't say to his credit, but he comes from a situation that he was living that. His friends, they're living in this lifestyle. Mm-hmm. You give him $1 million to do that, to say what he's living, he's going to say it. Mm-hmm. So I don't hold anything against them per se. However, when it's continually played on the radio, I mean, if you listen to the stations our kids listen to, there's not a variety of music. There's two types that you're going to hear all day, every day. And so when I was coming up, there was certain music that the radio stations wouldn't play, or they had to play late at night. You had to sneak to hear it because your parents wouldn't let you listen to it. But now they will cut out the cuss word, but everything is the same. You're hearing everything. So, they're hearing this type of music over and over and over and over. One of the things about the drill music, though, is that kind of is putting Chicago in the music industry, where you had rappers like Kanye, everyone knows him, but he's a great producer and a rapper, but he's so far out. These kids can relate to Chief Keef. So they're like, oh, we can actually make it. He's young like us, we're gonna do the same thing. So, I mean, I don't wanna knock him for trying to do what he's doing to make it, but at the same time, we have to understand the element that he comes from, and you add $1 million to that and tell him, yeah, go tell everybody what you do.
Stephanie, we've always had violence in media and music. What makes drill music more insidious?
I'm not sure if there's any one thing. Maybe the hyper-local nature of some of the messages that are being passed along. You can sort of envision the human being that somebody's talking about. You might know them, that you might know the street that they're talking about. I think it's been described as nihilistic, and I think one benefit of the drill music scene, and like you were talking about the Chicago rap scene sort of coming back to attention, is there's a do-it-yourself element that does sort of give youth in communities where they have reduced capacity to look to the future because there are so few opportunities. A way to sort of provide for themselves, develop their own skills in their own bedroom, working on their own beats. I think there is so if there's a message that's more positive coming out of those same skill sets that people are passing around and the same interests.
That said, though, when people constantly hear the message about violence and about guns or video games like the gentleman mentioned in the piece, does that desensitize people toward violence?
Yeah, I think so. I think, again, it goes back to the family. But, you know, if it wasn't instilled in you from an early stage in life, how to care and have values, then, yes, the music is going to add to the being desensitized to it, you know.
And I'm not knocking Chief Keef at all, you know, but at the same time, I am a part of his generation. And I'm pretty sure he's tired of losing friends just the same way that I am. And if you know that you have a certain influence, why not try to lead them another way? Like, I'm pretty tired of putting stones on our memorial. Like, you know, it's crazy.
Yeah. We're going to get back to that in just a minute. I want to introduce Chicago's Roseland neighborhood, which is one of the city's most crime-infested areas. Diane Latiker, founder of Kids Off the Block, walks us through her neighborhood and talks about her mission to make her community a safer place. Let's hear what she has to say.
Welcome to Roseland, a little piece of Chicago most people don't even know exists. We have 4 public high schools serving Roseland, where only 4% of the 11th graders are performing up to the state standard. On any given day, 1 of every 3 students don't even bother to go to school. And our unemployment rate is 3 times higher than the rest of Chicago. The only time you ever hear about us is on the news when one of our children dies in another senseless killing. My name is Diane Latiker, and 7 years ago, I'd had enough. I raised 8 kids in this neighborhood, but when my youngest started running wild, I decided to start Kids Off the Block. I quit my job and I invited kids into my home. We staged plays in this living room, went out skating, swimming, anything to keep them from going back to hanging out on the corners. Across the street is a memorial I decided to build 3 years ago, after Blair Holt died protecting a young girl in the school bus shooting. Here's the very first one. I was in Home Depot one day, and I found these stones. I wrote the names and ages of every kid who died in street shootings. There were 30 then. Now we're up to 220. All in Chicago, all dead.
Aisha, this is your mother, and you are in fact the one that she was worried about running wild there. So how has this organization impacted your life, and what difference has it made?
It made a huge difference. Growing up in Roseland, it's tough, but you know, when my mom started the organization, I didn't really take to it because she was dealing with the gangbangers, the drug dealers, the dropouts, teen pregnancy, just everything in a whole. She didn't discriminate. And for her to accept them in her house, like, you know, it was a hard pill to swallow for the simple fact that she's my mom. I don't want her disrespected, no one using her, whatever the case was. But once I actually got involved and started getting in these other kids' lives and seeing what they needed, like I had a 2-parent home, I had a support system, I had people who were there for me. And for me to just give that to them and let them, you know, see what it felt like, it's a rewarding feeling. So I couldn't do nothing but, you know, fall back and get involved with her. You know, that's all I could do. That was her passion, and now it's became one of mine. So.
LaShawn, what does work? I mean, you also work with these kids who are at risk. What does work?
I think exactly what her mom is doing. You know, you have to establish a relationship with the kids. A lot of the guys from my generation who are in the streets, myself included, are going out and actually making relationships with the youth that are out here, you know, in the gangs and in the lifestyle. And what really works with them is for someone to pull them to the side and get in their ear and hold on to them as a mentor. They'll rather listen to us, someone who's been in their situation, than a social worker. So that works. It's just reaching out to all of them takes time. So you have to start with the ones who are more influential and in leadership roles. And even with Chief Keef and Lil Durk and all them, we have people that are talking to them, trying, you know, tell them, show them the right way, and they listen. You know, it's just a matter now of how do we get the media to put that on spotlight. You know, because if the other kids saw that these kids are actually listening to other people, then they'll be more likely to sit down and listen to someone.
Earlier on, you talked about kids feeling like they had no hope. How do you change that? How do you get people to believe that there is something more?
You have to expose them, you know. Well, before I went to college, I never really left my neighborhood, you know. And then when I went away to college, I'm like, wow, it's a whole nother world out here. Most of our kids, our school is downtown in Chicago, in the Loop. Most of our kids never leave the neighborhood. They come downtown to school, and this is the first time they're actually downtown. And it's a bus ride away. So I believe exposure. You have to get them to see that there's more to the world than what they've been taught and what they've been conditioned to believe.
And also you have to believe in them so that they can believe in themselves.
Stephanie?
There's some programs in Chicago that have been proven to have a great deal of success that do exactly the same things that LaShawn and Aisha have mentioned. And it's having an adult positively intervene in a young person's life so that they can have a connection to somebody who's able to exercise that sort of slower thinking and logic that I was talking about before. And then also just having a safe place to go, like Aisha's mom provided, you know, that's a hugely important thing. School connection is really the most important thing. And when it comes to summertime, one of the programs in Chicago that shows a lot of promise is called One Summer Plus that gives young people job training and experiences, and then also some counseling to help practice things like anger management and slower reactions.
Yeah, jobs definitely. You know, a lot of kids, they're in the streets say, "If you can you just help me get a job?" You know, and then they don't really. They have to learn the skills to keep a job or to get the job. But summer employment for Chicago youth is tremendous. You know, once we give them something to do, it actually takes away the time that they can have to get in trouble.
A lot of people in the suburbs might be watching this and saying, "Look, this all happens in the same neighborhoods. It doesn't impact me." What do you say, Aisha, to somebody sitting in the suburbs who says, look, why should I care?
Because we're losing a generation. I don't understand how you could not care. If you have children or if you know someone with children and you have a relationship with them, you should fear for your life and theirs. Like, I couldn't fathom like why somebody wouldn't care or have empathy towards a mother losing her child. A 14-year-old killing another 14-year-old over a boy. Like, where's your heart? Like, that's the problem now. We so comfortable sitting back and, oh, well, that's not me. That's not my family. Why should I care? No, that's the problem. You need to care. Someone does.
Aisha, a very eloquent note on which to close. Thank you. That wraps up this special presentation of In the Loop, a closer look at youth violence. We'd like to thank our guests, Aisha Ladaker, LaShawn Jackson, and Stephanie Coleman. Until next time, I'm Chris Bury.
And I'm Barbara Pinto. Good night.
Goodbye.